Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Layla, the Lenormand reader. If you're new here, I am one of the few readers out there who focuses on the Lenormand practice. And I founded Lenormand Reader precisely to make the journey to learn and master Lenormand smoother than what it is for the most part. So have a look at all the links that I have for you in the description box, and there's a whole lot in there that you can find to get started or to really dive into this practice. So welcome to this video. This is another Q&A that I'm doing. Recently I posted on the community if you were interested in having me do another Q&A, and I received a whole lot of questions from you. So I am really delighted to sit down here with you today and to answer these questions. So let's get right into them. I'm going to start at the top with the list of questions that I have under the community post. The first question comes from the Water Wheel, and the question is, how much do you believe in Lenormand readings and how much is just for fun? And I think this is a really great question. I don't think it applies just to Lenormand. I think you can ask this question about any divination practice, whether it is the tarot, Lenormand, oracle cards, and even numerology and astrology and other divination methods. This is probably a question that most of us ask, and I think as we learn and master a divination method, including Lenormand, we are probably going to reach a point where we debate how much we want to take this seriously. For my part, I take it pretty seriously, but it doesn't overwhelm me. My cards are just one source of inspiration for me. I also like to use my intuition, how I feel about a situation, and I use my mind and my reason and my brain and my experience most of the time as well. So the way I see it is that you have all sorts of tools, wonderful tools at your disposal, including your mind, your heart, your intuition, maybe other things in your life like a divine presence, a connection with angels, etc. And all of these, you pull them into the insight that you need for the moment or when you're asking a question. So do I take it seriously? Yes, I do take it seriously, but I do not limit myself to my cards. I also think it's a lot of fun. Like I can, I can seek insight and enjoy it. Often enough, when I don't have a reason why to go for an option or to make a choice or to make a decision, then I might fall back on my cards because I just don't have anything else to to guide me, let's say. So it's either totally random, or I use my cards, or I have a reason to go for such a course of action. On this note, I want to generally say that you don't have to feel like it's either reason or intuition. They're not at odds with each other. I've come across this a few times where people say your mind is getting in the way of your intuition. Well, I'm not sure if that's really the mind. It's more like typically your fears or a dysfunctional pattern or something that is in the way. It's not necessarily the mind. The mind is a very helpful tool. You want to use it whenever you can. In fact, it's a wonderful gift. So yes, I do take my reading seriously, but also with a lot of fun. And I use my readings in my life a lot. I hope that is a satisfactory answer, Water Wheel. Let's move on to the next question. Mags Star 111 asks, can Lenormand readings give a time frame prediction? So the short answer is yes, but it's not going to be accurate. And I invite you to practice Lenormand, to practice timing questions and see how well your cards answer them. Now, this isn't just about Lenormand, but again, all divination methods, we can ask a similar question: how good are they with answering time and timing predictions? And here's what I think. I think if divination methods nailed timing, they would have replaced science a long time ago. Timing is the most challenging thing to predict, and really it is almost everything. Why? Because you can say that, well, everything happens sooner or later. The question is when. If you can nail the when, then you have a really solid prediction. So I think that if any divination method had nailed a timing prediction a long time ago, they would have replaced science. But it's not the case. Timing is tricky to predict, and that is true for Lenormand. It's true for any divination method, including ones that you would think are better at timing, like astrology and numerology. Now, when it comes to predicting time with Lenormand, the way to do it is to associate different time frames with different cards. And the main card meaning helps you with that. So for example, the rider, the whip, the scythe, they are faster cards. The tree, the tower, the house, on the other hand, they are slower cards. So you can sort of get a sense of how fast or how slow something can materialize. When I do, with my private readings, when I do them for others, I tend to ask the client to time box the reading. So we ask a question, but we say, will something, for example, materialize within X weeks? So you time box the question and then you answer within that time horizon. And then once you're past that time horizon, you might want to visit the question again. So I think that that's a better way of doing it than keeping it open-ended and leaving it up to the cards to predict entirely the time frame. Something I've come across is I've seen some authors associate very specific time frames with the number of the card. So for example, if you're looking at a 6 of spades, it would refer to 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, and so on. And some authors will also associate a shorter time frame with a certain suit and a longer time frame with another suit. I don't think this works. I think it is way too specific, but I invite you to try and to practice and to see what are the methods that work best for you. So again, timing can be predicted, and I think the most successful way, I should say, is when you're flexible with it, when you look at something a bit more rough, like something faster or slower, you can sort of say a few weeks versus a few months, but you can't demark an exact date, if you see what I mean. So with this degree of flexibility, yes, more or less you can. And that is what I call a correspondence, so a specific association that you make with a card. There are love correspondences, time correspondences, astrological correspondences. There's all sorts of things you can associate with a card, and that's what I call correspondences. And yes, my video about this, my tutorial about this is coming up, so stay tuned. Okay, enough about timing. Let's move on to the next question. Manassi asks, she asks, while listening to Lenormand readings, I always felt an inclination towards practical aspects and situations more. And so the question she's asking us is, have you observed yourself reading it in some instances as absolutely spiritual? So Manassi, I understand exactly where you're coming from. Lenormand is a very practical, down-to-earth deck, and it can feel like it has nothing to do with spirit, and it's all about work, money, relationships, and practical things. That's actually the reason why a lot of people like it, why those who like it, because it is in your face and it is so practical. But this doesn't mean that you can't interpret the cards in a spiritual context. And that too is a correspondence. So what are the spiritual correspondences of the cards? What do the cards mean in a spiritual context? There are cards that are more spiritual than others. The tree, tower, the cross, they tend to be associated with the deeper currents of life, the idea of destiny and things like that. And of course, when you look at surrounding cards, they can inform this situation more. So I would say it's up to you what you want to get out of your cards. You want to be able to expand the meaning of your cards so that you can interpret them in any context. And actually, that is precisely the beauty of Lenormand. And that too is another correspondence, like I said. And Manassi has another part to the question. It asks, also, do you strengthen your interpretations consciously by using books or other mediums? So I think I understand pretty well what you mean, Manassi, the idea of consciously. I think by that you mean if you have to use brain to interpret the card, so actually looking up in the book, what does this card mean? What does this combination mean? Typically, we get stuck with combinations. My answer is initially when I was learning and studying and building my practice, yes, I had to refer to books, and often I came across contradictory meanings across the different books. And for a while, it can feel like practicing Lenormand is a little bit academic. But that's only because the approach to Lenormand is different from the tarot and the oracle. And usually we come to Lenormand with the expectation that it's going to be pretty much the same thing. It's just a different, set of symbols. But actually, no. The practice of Lenormand, like the mental and the psycho-spiritual thing that is happening when you are reading Lenormand is different than the tarot, is different from oracle cards. So people don't expect that, and they come to the practice thinking that that's how it's done, but it's not. So for a while it can feel like, wait, what is happening here? And then they have doubts and blockages, and then they'll go back to the books. And let me tell you, this is totally fine. It is part of the learning process. And actually that is the beauty of Lenormand, is that it trains your interpretive imagination in a different way. And for a while you might need books, other media to inform how you ought to interpret something as you learn. And then you're going to get past that, and you're going to, I'm confident, you're going to love the way Lenormand engages your interpretive imagination through the many lines and the portraits and these big spreads where everything comes together in a beautiful kind of alchemical work. So I hope this answers you, Manasi. I'm going to move on to the next question. John, this made me laugh. Your question really made me laugh. John says he feels that when doing personal Lenormand readings, I'm a novice, he states, they are extra negative, especially compared to tarot readings. That is interesting, John, because there are many, many positive cards in the Lenormand deck and many more than negative cards. For example, Happy Me asks, will I go on a vacation soon? And the answer is ship, woman, scythe, and coffin. And so the answer is no, and you will die if you try. I found that totally hilarious. Another example asks, will I have a good day today? Answer, coffin and clouds. So a bit of a cloudy day. So John asks, my question is, why does this always happen to me? Is it because I'm Capricorn? Are these cards biased? So John, of course not. It's not because you're Capricorn and there are billions of Capricorns. And no, the cards are not biased. But here's what could be happening. We could go through phases where similar cards come through. And this is usually a sign over and above the day-to-day spreads or the straight up layouts that you're doing that invite you to think about the messages that you're getting through your cards. So when I'm looking at your cards, I see you in the two examples that you give, coffin twice, a coffin and clouds, scythe and coffin. Clearly here you want to postpone the trip. Might you die in the process? Well, I guess, there is a chance that we can die anytime. But it sounds like, just from looking at these two questions that you answer with these cards, John, it might be a good time to go within a little bit. So you see these recurring cards, these recurrent energies through your cards. They're a message that are inviting you to think about them a bit beyond the simple question that you're asking. It sounds like it's a time you might want to go within. And we could go through phases where we're seeing the same cards. It's a bit like you go through phases where you're seeing the same signs, and you see, for example, the same numbers or the same symbols in your day-to-day life. It's the same thing that is happening, except it's happening through your cards. So no, it's not because you're a Capricorn or something is wrong with you, or that the cards are biased. It's because maybe you're going through a phase where the cards are inviting you to think about a sign beyond the simple two-dimensional reading. And to add to that, John, there are many more positive cards in the Lenormand deck than there are negative cards. I invite you to explore this through the card meanings that I have on the website, and also through my master guides and the MLCC if you want to dive more deeply into this. Okay, I hope this satisfies you, John. Moving on. I have here a comment by Boko Lowish. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce this right. I'm probably gonna mispronounce a few of these names. The comment is, I have discovered a consistency when I look back to see if the answers to questions I asked really rang true. And now I use your page a lot when I feel stuck. Thank you. My pleasure. I'm glad my page, I'm not sure which page you're referring to, if it's on the website or my main YouTube page, but I'm glad that my resources or whatever it is you refer to from Lenormand Reader has been helpful. I'm also happy that you go back to the questions that you asked and you see if the answer rang true. This is great. It tells me that you are keeping a record and that you are building your practice. So well done. The next question comes from Amal Awad. Amal has two questions. So the first question is, she says, you often describe the dog and heart as friendly rather than romantic. Yes, that is true. I do interpret these two cards like this. She asks, could it not be puppy love though? Yes, it can. Absolutely, it can. Especially if the context invites this interpretation, or I would say if there are more or less challenging cards next to the pair. I think maybe the mouse or the clouds can add to that because they're not very challenging cards. A more abrasive card like the whip or the scythe can turn this a little bit to a separation or an argument as opposed to the character of the relationship. I also read the child and clouds as something a bit childish, so that might contribute to the idea of puppy love when the dog is added to the child and we have the clouds in there. So absolutely work through your combinations and always work with how you best resonate with the cards. It is absolutely fine, and actually it is key so that you produce authentic interpretations. Okay, the next question from Amal is, have you ever pulled, say, 5 cards, but needed more information, so you add to the spread, or do you deal a new spread altogether? So that is called augmenting, and I think in the tarot, they have another word for it. It escapes me right now, but the idea of augmenting is when you add a card like spontaneously on top of an existing card or an existing spread because you feel that the spread as it stands doesn't really give you a lot of information, or maybe you're missing a detail that you want to find out more about. Augmenting is a perfectly fine practice. People do it in Lenormand, they do it in the tarot and oracle cards. In fact, all cartomantic kind of divination methods, they can use the idea of augmenting or the technique of augmenting to find out more about something that you're stuck at. In my personal practice, I don't augment. It's just not my habit. It's not that I have anything against it. It's just that my practice is not to augment. Instead, yes, like you suggest, Amal, I do draw another spread. On this note, with Lenormand, it is very helpful to break down your question into little bits, and you can do small spreads to cover the whole situation from different angles. And this way, you don't need to augment. But that is just another technique that you can use. Augmenting is perfectly fine. It is common, and if you find that it works for you, Amal, then keep using it. Okay, moving on to another question. So this is from Kay. Kay Lavergne. 2 questions, and one is probably a bit more complicated than the other. Let's find out. So the first question is, have you ever gotten the intuition that the Sun card can represent something blinding and someone isn't seeing something that could be holding them back? It's not an interpretation I've seen in other sources, so it makes me hesitant, but I also know to trust my intuition. So, Kay, that is a really interesting way of interpreting the cards. And I'm going to say, no, that is not how I interpret the Sun. If you want to interpret the Sun in this way, that is totally fine. I would want, if I were to interpret the Sun in this way, I would want a challenging card nearby. because the sun is typically bright and optimistic, and if it's going to turn into being blinded, which I assume is a negative kind of connotation here, I would want a challenging card. So that is totally fine. But again, go with how you feel with the cards. And also, Kay, different questions might inspire you to read the cards differently. So also go with that and honor it. Where would I read someone or something being blinded? I think the clouds. I would say the clouds card is the card that covers the sun. So the clouds cover the sun and you're blinded from seeing. There's a whole lot of cards and combinations that you can use to come up with such a meaning. Maybe the book and snake is being blinded by something. The snake and garden can be a snake in the grass, so not knowing that something is ahead, some kind of danger is ahead. Really, there's quite a few cards that you can use in different combinations to come up with that. So short answer, Kate, that's not how I read it. If that's how you want to read it, that is fine. Now, moving on to the second question by Kay. What are the steps to starting my own Lenormand business? I plan on taking the master courses and becoming certified once my schedule and finances are more solid. But beyond that, it seems like a lot of legal and business jargon. Thank you so much. My pleasure, Kay. So I can't wait to have you on the course. I can't wait to welcome you on the course. I have a group of students who are very passionate about Lenormand, and I can tell you that our monthly calls are just amazing. The interaction is great, so I can't wait to have you on there. I haven't yet created a course or some kind of offering that teaches you on how to start your Lenormand business. I do plan to create the course for starting a Lenormand business, but also my vision as it stands right now is to make it a bit broader than just Lenormand and to teach people how to engage their passion in a business. On this note, I want to say that COVID has been an eye-opener for myself and for many of us, and I am so grateful that I had my Lenormand business. It has been such a great support, if not a lifesaver altogether, and I absolutely encourage you to have a side business, at least a side. It is full-time for me right now, but I definitely encourage you to build a business, especially if it's something that makes you happy, if it's something that you're passionate about, and I'm delighted that Lenormand is one of those for you. So do hop onto the program, and then as we move forward, I will always be able to offer you tips until I have a robust offering to help you kick off that Lenormand business. Okay, so thank you, Kate. Moving on to another question. I have one from Anne Martinez. First of all, I want to say I really enjoy your readings. I subscribe to your channel and look forward to them. Thank you for your time, your effort, and energy. My pleasure, Anne Martinez. I'm delighted that you enjoy what I offer. The question is, when a male or female comes up in your readings, are they gender specific or can the story play out either way? So it is helpful to have a gender specific card just because we have a man and woman. So it's helpful. It gives you more specific information. But to say that it is always like the man card is always a man and a female card is always a female, that is not my experience. I have a couple of women in my life who I inquire about every so often. They're close to me, they're friends and family. And for some reason, consistently, I get the man when I inquire about them. It's not about their relationships, it represents them. I can't explain this. I don't know why. It just seems to be, the energy that I guess comes up. And they're not masculine. They're just like, they're just women. So in my personal practice, I feel that, they can sort of switch around. Now, I do have a video about the significators, and I'm going to link this. And I do talk about the gender thing and how you can use it specifically in a grand tableau. So my experience is no, it is not rigidly. The man card is a male and the female card, the woman card is a female. But I like to have a distinction just because it's an additional source of information. So instead of, letting anything be anything, I prefer to have a specific. In your practice, you decide, and also practice and train your interpretive muscle so that you see how your cards speak to you. Okay, I hope this helps. Okay, moving on to the next question. I have one here from Diane Thinknantnoid. I probably butchered that. I'm sorry, Diane. I'm just going to stick with Diane. Diane says, there are some decks that have 2 men and women cards. Please advise on how to interpret the cards when both the 2 men and the 2 women show up in a spread. How can we identify which card is which is the querent, and which is the partner and the other person? So if you have 4. To have clearer understanding in case the reading is telling about a hidden affair or not. Okay. And then Diane asks, or he, she is indeed LGBTQ, but I just have no idea at all, as a matter of fact, but we are dating, for instance. Okay. So Diane, the reason why there are 2 sets, why many decks today have 2 sets of significators is precisely to have people choose which 2 cards they want to use. So for example, for a gay relationship between, let's say, 2 women, you would pull out the 2 women cards. This is the Rana George deck, and Rana George has indeed, like Diane says, 2 sets of man and woman. So let me just have these for you so you can have a look. And I did start a deck review series, and I am going to review the Rana George deck at some point. So we have the 2 males here, and we have the 2 female cards. So what you can do, Diane, is you can pick either any 2 and insert them in the deck, but then you leave out the other 2 and you draw your tableau. You cannot do a tableau with 40 cards. You need with 38 cards. You need the 36 deck. So let me backtrack a little bit, Diane. So you need 2 significator cards, and you can pick any 2 out of the 4 that you get with your deck. You insert these in the deck, you leave the other 2 out, and then you draw your spread. So this way it is clear to you who's who, and you can choose beforehand who are the 2 significators. And this works for people from the LGBTQ community, where they might pick 2 women, 2 men, or whatever pair of cards they want to use as significators, and they use those in the deck. Diane, this more or less relates to the previous question by Anne Martinez, and this too I address in that significator video, so check it out. And yes, you are not supposed to use all of the significators. You just pick 2 and you insert them in the deck. I hope this makes sense. Now, you do have a somewhat separate question here. You ask, in case the reading is telling of a hidden affair. So we do have a card for this, Diane, and that is the snake. The snake card is typically associated with an illicit affair when it comes to relationships. So if you're going to see the snake with the heart, or the snake with the ring, or that they're pretty close to each other in, say, a tableau, then this might bring up the possibility that something is going on with someone else. Some people might also use the pips. So the pips are, I'm just going to pull out more from the George deck here. The pips are the playing cards that are associated with each card, and some of them are a person card. So you can see here we have, I believe this is the page of diamonds is associated with the scythe, and sometimes people will refer to the court card that is on the card to get an indication of another person coming into the picture. I hope this makes sense, Diane, but by all means, let me know. And also, again, I refer you to that video where I talk about the significators. Stick with 36 cards unless you are purposely augmenting the deck to more cards, which, by the way, some authors do, and that I will also cover in the deck reviews. So again, stay tuned for that. Okay, let's move on to more questions. I have a question here from Megs 000, and then I think there's another 0, so Megs 4 zeros. How do you know if, for example, the woman card comes up in a reading, if it's me or if it's another woman who figures in my life? Thank you. And she says, huge fan of your pick a card readings. Thank you, Megs. I hope you always find them interesting. So that is a good question, and I appreciate this. It can be a source of confusion, who the woman is. So I'm going to suggest what I do is I decide beforehand. Before I sit down on a reading, I decide, what the man and woman can represent. And I also can use the surrounding cards to be able to tell whether it's me or if it's a reference to someone else. Now, this said, Megs, in a grand tableau, the woman card would represent you if you choose the woman card as your significator, and then the man card or whichever other card significator you've decided to insert in the deck, like we were just talking about, would refer to another person, typically, classically, your partner. So yes, this can be a bit tricky, but you can do two things. First, you can decide beforehand, and then in the grand tableau, it's straightforward. The significator would represent you, and the other one would represent your partner. I hope this makes sense. If you want me to elaborate more on this, leave me a comment and I'll circle back. Moving on to the next question. This is from Optimistic and Happy. When I watch your readings, a lot of times I will watch the other signs that are not my own, and they resonate. Can you explain why? Yes. And okay, so there's another question. So yes, I think the reason is because these are, first of all, they're general readings. And so the way I interpret is in a broad sense, so it can appeal to many of you. Of course, those who want a more specific answer, they're going to reach out for a private reading. So in general, I tend to keep my readings broad, so it's going to be likely that you resonate with some of the things I say for other signs. That's one. And another reason why it might be the case is because we are not just driven by our sun sign, we have other signs in our charts that operate. They have an energy and they influence how we operate. So you could resonate with them. And something else that could come up is that you might resonate with a specific set of signs this month or this week, but then the next month or the following week, it might be another set of signs. And that, I would think, I'm not an astrologer, but I would think astrologers would explain that as, the sky changes, it pulls on the different aspects of your birth chart in different ways. So it may well be why you experience that, which I think is good. The next part of your question is, I try to read Lenormand for myself, but I don't seem to be connected to the cards. Are reading cards only for spiritually gifted people? Can anyone read cards and they resonate, or is it only for the gifted? You are absolutely gifted. We all are. And I understand exactly where you're coming from. To be honest, I don't consider myself gifted. If you thought that if any of you thought that I would be, is what I mean. I don't really consider myself gifted. In fact, I think of myself a bit more academic when it comes to the cards, and I think my students really pick up that I can be a bit bookish. So, I'm the type who likes to define every card, define every combination. I like to write it down. I have like the, is it what they call type A brain? I feel I have that approach with the card. And with practice, my interpretation skills became more spontaneous. So it might come across that I am gifted, or that other Lenormand readers are gifted. The truth is, and every successful business person will tell you that there is no amount of giftedness that substitutes for practice. You can have all of the talent and gift in the world, but if you don't practice, it's, nothing is going to come out of it. So absolutely not. It is not for the gifted. And in fact, I'm not even sure if that is a valid concept, really, to say that, we're gifted. Maybe we're attracted to some things more than others, and this inspiration opens up our creativity and our interpretive imagination. But who's to say that you don't have that in you? If you're going to put in a few hours and practice and see what you make of it. So I absolutely invite you to try your hand at Lenormand and see how you evolve as a reader. Now, I understand when you say you don't connect with the cards. I think this has to do with the fact that Lenormand is not really, the symbols of Lenormand are not really magical. They are very mundane, day-to-day symbols. And we talked a little bit earlier about this practical, in-your-face aspect of Lenormand. And maybe that's the reason why you don't connect with the cards. I still think that maybe if you practice a little bit more, you will build a connection. You're getting to know something and you want to nurture that relationship, and that can come through time. So maybe right now you don't feel connected with the cards, but if you practice and maybe make it a regular thing where you touch base with your deck every so often, you can start building a connection and discover for yourself what you make of it. So I hope this helps and it inspires you. Moving on. I want to say that sometimes I get questions about, like, for example, here, will there be a reconciliation in 2 months? I appreciate that when I say, when I put out a Q&A out there, some folks ask me about their personal, like if something is going to happen in their life, like I'm reading for them, doing a reading. But the Q&As are really for learning and practicing Lenormand. So I apologize for this. I know my channel caters to both, and so the Q&A is really to learn. So the next question comes from Bettina Carlson, and Bettina asks, is it a problem to believe too much in Lenormand, like a prediction? So we answered more or less this kind of question from the get-go. It was the Water Wheels question, who asked, how much do you believe in Lenormand? How much is it serious and how much is it for fun? And I think Bettina is asking something pretty similar, asking, is it a problem to believe too much in Lenormand, like a prediction? So my personal answer is yes. I don't think you should believe too much in anything. Even science is fallible, and your mind is fallible, but they're all still good sources of information. So again, I think the attitude of healthy skepticism, a healthy dose of detachment, having your faith in the right place, and really using the other wonderful things that you have in your system, like your heart, your mind, your life experience, and your knowledge, all of it can come together to help you make a decision or to think through an issue that you're going through in life. So I would say believing too much in not just Lenormand, but in anything is not constructive. And Lenormand is one of them. And the same would go with tarot. Now, if you want a Lenormand practice, if you want a tarot practice or any other divination practice, it's typically because you want to use it for something. If you're not interested in using this tool as a source of inspiration, possibly as a source of information, you don't have to use it. You can just use the other tools in your life, like your mind, your heart, your intuition, your knowledge, your life experience, and you don't need a divination tool. That is totally fine. But if you want a divination tool, then it's probably because you want to use it for something. Typically, classically, it's to inform some decisions, to inspire us, maybe to uncover something about the future, or maybe even about the past and the present. And so it is up to you how you want to use the Lenormand deck, and the kind of place that it has for you in your life. Of course, this comes with practice, with maturity, and also it can change with time. But again, over-investing yourself in anything, I think is probably fallacious, because in truth, all sorts of sources of information are fallible. So I think a healthy dose of skepticism and having an attitude of well-roundedness and also having a good sense of humor is very, very helpful in life. So I hope this helps, Bettina. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the Q&A. I've answered all of the questions about Lenormand, the practice. I hope you have found this helpful. Again, I want to refer you to all the resources that I have for you to learn. I have everything from free resources all the way to the certification program and the master guides in between. So be sure to have a look at what's on the website so you can take advantage of my resources as much as possible. And as always, thank you so much for being part of this community. Please stay in touch, reach out anytime, and until next time, thank you so much for watching and take very good care of yourself.